now listening to Nerd Hour. Amateur Hour. Please, allow me to show you something. Let's get to work.
Welcome to Film Nerds Hour. I'm Nathaniel Shoemaker.
Now we have a 2-minute intro that we can put in.
Oh, go on a chode. Go dry up. Get the frick off it.
Hey!
That's why I love Nestle Crunch. Ah! No. I could remake it from memory, Noah, because it's ingrained in my brain. I will have Alzheimer's when I'm 98 and not know what my wife's face looks like, but I will remember that's why I love Nestle Crunch. An older sibling slaps younger sibling in the back of the head. He screams, ah. I will never not remember that. It'll be a fever dream that I'll say in my sleep.
That is the point.
Can you tell I'm tired? I'm overreacting to everything. So we're talking about Roma.
Yes, we are. Which is only available on
Netflix
Netflix.
original.
Yes, and that came out in 2018? Or did that come out in 2019?
2018.
It was 2018, okay.
It won awards at the 2019 Oscars. That's why you're confused.
Okay, and that was the running up. So I would say that this is this is another international film if you guys haven't noticed the theme that we had for the month.
This whole time. In which case, I guess you just haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. I think, I'm pretty sure we have videos up all month.
Yeah.
Constantly, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But, nonetheless, Roma, 2018, beautifully shot film.
Mm-hmm.
I will say for me personally, it's one of those that I do have to watch again to really appreciate.
Sure.
I think there was just a lot going on for me personally.
Right. You had an issue with it being black and white and you having to read subtitles and they blend in, correct?
Yeah, that was one of my problems. And I don't have problems with reading subtitles. It's just that it's some of the shots that they had the subtitles on the light parts.
Sure.
And they would move it and it was kind of like, okay, that's kind of hard to read.
It's a lot of one-take shots.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that.
It's very nice.
And I mean, to its credit, it actually did it pretty well. Better than you would think.
Well, I mean, it won Academy Awards for cinematography and Best International Film and Best Directing by Sir Alfonso Cuarón. I hope that I'm saying his name right. Which you've seen some of his films before.
I have to look again. I'm looking at him right now.
He directed the third Harry Potter movie.
I just looked at that, and why didn't I get it? Yeah. And Gravity, which...
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did he do Pan's Labyrinth as well?
No, that was Guillermo del Toro.
That's right. He had a hand in The Witches, the 2020 version? Yikes.
He directed Children of Men, which is a great movie. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Post-apocalyptic, right?
Yeah, all the guy's sperm stops working. So, no kids are born. And then the main character finds a pregnant woman and has to get her to safety.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute.
It's a great movie.
I think you might be mixing that up. It looks like it's a short film.
No, it's an hour, 54 minute.
Oh, if you click on it, it says The Possibility of Hope, short/documentary.
No, I clicked on Children of Men.
This one? Alright. Same one?
No. If you go to Roma, I'm teaching him how to use Google, guys. I'm sure this is entertaining. Go to Roma, click on the director twice, and then Children of Men from 2006.
Oh, it's the one up above. Okay,
there you go. Mm-hmm.
Outside.
Great movie.
Wonder why the label did that one. Yeah, that one's on my list. That one is on my list of things to watch.
Yeah, it's weird. Charlie Hunnam has dreads.
Huh.
I know, it's weird.
Well, in any case, this man has mastered some great cinematography and a couple of great movies, which I know people say Gravity. I think Gravity is the one that had some mixed reception. Is it? No, it did get solid reviews from both sides.
It made well, it's not the easiest thing to watch because your perception is screwed with. Because everything's moving in a way that makes you want to puke.
Maybe that's why so many people like it in a sense, though, because it really gives you the sense of no gravity.
Mm-hmm. They're defying gravity. That was a wicked reference. Anyway.
So, Roma.
On Netflix. This was my pick, because you had never seen it before. Had you heard of it?
I had heard of it. I just didn't know whether to get around to it or not. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of one of those that I was like, oh, okay. I might give it a shot one day.
Yeah. This is a great film. I'm surprised at how much I enjoyed it. Just because, for me, usually character piece films... I love living in the ghetto. Anyway, character piece films that are longer than 2 hours, for me, are usually like a slog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, because I never felt bored while watching this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is one thing that, regardless of however, like, even with my feelings, that there was so much going on in an environment that it just never stopped. The ball kept rolling. There was always something to see. Mm-hmm. Even in the static shots that they had, which for those of you who don't know, static means still. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah. Technical issues. And by technical issues, I mean people need to go to sleep in my neighborhood. But yeah, Oscar-winning film. It was only available on Netflix, but I believe it was released by the Criterion Collection.
Yeah, they did a couple of those. They did A Marriage Story, The Irishman, all at once. So,
yeah, it's nice.
Usually with the Criterion Collection, I think they're about, what is it, $25 to $30 usually?
Something like that.
But they include a lot in those.
Oh, so yeah. That probably includes the whole making of documentary, which is almost as long as the film.
Yeah, so I mean, you get quite a bit when it comes to those, so you're not being screwed over in any capacity whatsoever.
Which, pardon me, oh, sorry. Oh, I'm falling. Okay, sorry. Part of me wishes I had watched the making of documentary, because I feel like this conversation we're having would have been more interesting, but...
I'm sure we'll be able to revisit some of these kind of movies in just a general discussion one day, too, about...
We'll revisit them in like 5 years when we know what we're talking about better.
Yeah.
You know, when you have your dream of being James Gunn's director protege.
That would be fascinating.
Would that not be awesome?
It would be. And it'd give me bragging rights.
Exactly. And I'll be your I'll be your Michael Rooker that you feel like it's a drag putting me in everything you make. And you're like, God, that idiot. I have to put him in everything I make. It's horrible to work with him.
But he's here. Put him in something weird.
Exactly. You'd put me in something weird. I know that.
He'll either leave or he'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. Be like, hi!
But.
Like, because that's my favorite thing to do on any kind of set or anything, is just be myself, with my large kind of... Because people, with my size and, like, how I usually have a beard, some people do get intimidated by me. And then I just go up to them and, like, stare at them for a second and go, hi! How are you? Good to see ya.
As long as you don't start calling yourself Flumpty Bumpty, I think you'll be okay.
I'm Flumpty Bumpty. All right. No. Because just, I seem tough on the exterior, and then my Minnesotan comes out to say hello, and he's very loud. Hi. What's going on, fellas? But in any case, yeah, Roma. Did you have any takeaways from this movie that you really wanted to talk about?
Not that really resonated that I can think of offhand.
Yeah, it's difficult because, like...
There really is just a lot to follow in this movie, so...
Well, yeah, because there's the main plot with the main live-in maid, but then there's the subplot with the mom. And it's one of those things where it's like... I kind of get the same feeling I got when I watched Lady Bird, where it's like... It's a very female-centric story,
Which, nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that. I love it. I love that, because representation is awesome. I'm so glad. But it's a thing of, like, it's very female-centric, and the situations that are experienced are usually experienced by women.
Yeah.
So there's no way that, like, not only do I not relate to the situation, but I don't, like, I won't in the future, You know what I mean?
It's not something you could just kind of turn off and on.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, like, because we'll get into the plot of it in a second, so go ahead to Netflix real quick while you can, or order it off the Criterion Collection, whatever you want to do. And because we do recommend watching this movie.
Yeah, I'd say everything is worth a go, and this, like I said, there's a lot, even I think especially for film students to take.
Yeah, even if the story doesn't resonate with us, that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just might mean we're not the target audience, because we're not.
Exactly right. So I would say you guys should go give it a go, just see how you like it, and then come back. And if you're just wanting to hear about it, that's fine too.
Exactly. But yeah, with that said, we're gonna get into some of the plot points. But before we do that, real quick, let me just say, like, I at least want to say I want to at least credit the two actresses we center around, because Yalitza Aparicio, I hope I'm saying your name right. She played Cleo, the main character, and then Marina de Tavieira, she played Sophia, the mom. You both killed it. If you ever hear this in your lives, know that you did a great job on this movie.
The acting was superb through this entire movie.
Yeah, but those are the two. They're the two standouts for me, because they're the main.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But in any case, spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, so the situations I was referencing that you and I won't, like, and, like, the argument I've heard from my friend is like, oh yeah, you yourself will never get pregnant, but you will probably at some point get someone pregnant. And I'm like, okay, I agree with that, but then who am I relating to? The asshole boyfriend who never called? Like, because that's not, me, that's not me at all. Like,
right.
I would never, that's not something I would ever, that's not in my repertoire. I would just be like, oh yay! That's just who I am.
You want to find somebody in every movie that you can somewhat identify with on a positive
Exactly, and, like,
level. And
I could maybe see the point of I could maybe relate to the mom at some point, because she gets cheated on throughout this movie, and as much as I hate to admit it, that might happen in my life. I don't know what the future holds. So I might understand that more, but I don't know.
I think, it's hard to also, and it's not just a matter of gender, it's just having, I mean, with an action movie, there's ways that you write certain things. One of those being, like, you take a look at something like John Wick. You relate to John Wick not because he's a man,
Right.
but because we all have that feeling of if somebody that we had died and the last tether or living tether to them was killed or brutalized, that you'd probably find a way to justify that. You would take the means in your own hands. It's a matter of if you could physically do that or not.
Exactly.
But for each action movie, there's a character that you can follow, and it's about knowing their backstory and finding a character to identify with. Now, when it comes to, like, let's say, like Knives Out or A Murder on the Orient Express, those are movies where, like, the whodunits, it's very set and you have somebody that you get to follow.
Right.
Each person that you follow doesn't always need a backstory, or it can be fabricated, but each character has some sort of personality trait that you can relate to or follow closely in a sense that immerses you in the story so you can feel like you connect somewhere and look in.
Right, and I feel very immersed in the story, and, like, I don't feel connected in the sense that I might experience the things that Cleo experienced, but I feel connected in the sense of, like, I understand what she's feeling because I'm also a human. You know what I mean?
You want to be able to find a character that can kind of explain what you're feeling without having to feel it.
Exactly. Well, and like I feel like we have in this movie we have the two characters we focus on. It centers on the two ends of it, right? Like you could be the person, you could be like Cleo, who has barely any dollars, you know, to the point where when she's getting picked up for a date, she offers her leftover food to the person she's going on a date with. Or you could be the woman who is doing very well because her husband's a doctor, but she's just not happy with her life because he has a mistress and she doesn't feel like she's good enough, you know? Like, we have both ends of the money spectrum.
Yeah, it's a very nice representation of the grass isn't greener on both sides at all. It's merely just a phrase and a way for people to express, oh yeah, well, you think everything is better. Mm-hmm. But each lifestyle, unless you really are just one of those people who never has to lift a finger in their life and hasn't woken up to reality yet, each and every person, no matter what your social status is, no matter what kind of lifestyle you have or what kind of life you're given or choose to pursue or end up in, every life and selection and choice has its ups and downs.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Each comes with a very particular set of risk and possibilities that wouldn't typically be more common in another situation.
Exactly. Like I will notice, even though both situations were kind of on an equal level of bad, like, I definitely felt like Cleo's character, and maybe it's because we followed her more closely than the mom, but, like, she smiled a lot more. She seemed more happy than anything else, even though the situation she was going through was very difficult.
Right, which is something that I can closely relate to, in a sense, just, with, I'm a very aggressively happy person, if that makes sense.
You're one of those, for sure.
I try my best to be happy, but it is one of those things where sometimes you just kind of walk with a face.
Yeah, and you've noticed me, I have a tendency to kind of just be...
more optimistic.
Yeah, I'm happy in a effortless kind of way, in a sense.
Yeah, which you have some people that are like that, and then you have other people who kind of...
Well, I attribute a lot to that when I accepted the fact that I don't have much control over my life. You know what I mean? And that's okay. Because, like, I can do things in my life, right? Like, I can try to make things work and all this stuff. But there's 7.6 billion other people on the planet. And odds are, outside of my life, they have more effect over my life than I do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because here's the thing that really cemented it for me, too. We live on a sphere that moves at trillions of miles an hour in a circle around a giant ball of fire. If you think you have any control beyond that, you're lying to yourself, okay? But not having control isn't a bad thing. Because at least, you know, at a certain point, life will still have a capacity to surprise you. You know what I mean?
And I think some people, it's just a matter of, I think it's a matter of people just having that little bit. It's not even always about having complete control.
Right.
It's about having enough control to the point where you don't feel trapped.
Yeah.
Which I feel like kind of works with these characters.
Yeah, it does, really.
Because it's kind of like, you know, with the situation, I mean, with Cleo's situation, that's the mom, right?
No, Cleo is the maid.
Cleo's the maid. What's the mom's name again?
Sophia.
Yeah, with Sophia, it's like, okay, my husband's having an affair. How do I address that without losing everything?
Right, exactly.
And putting my kids in the middle of that?
And I gathered, like, her admitting what's going on and not hiding in that veil of an illusion is also, like, subconsciously it's her way of saying it's true. And she still doesn't believe it's true for the majority of this film, I don't think. You know?
She subconsciously, I think she
thinks he'll still come back, you know? She thinks he'll still be better. And no. Like,
Which
if a person cheats, they're a cheater. Like, it's not.
they could come back to you, but at that point,
I wouldn't put the money on it. You know.
well, it's more or less like, do you expect them to be back with you, or do you expect them to just be present? Because just being present doesn't exactly grant anything.
Exactly. Like, there's a difference. There's a big difference between being with someone and being present. Yeah. And like, there's little neat niches. Yeah, sorry, what?
No, continue.
There's little like personality quirks I've noticed between these characters. Like the dad, when he's trying to park his car in the garage, it's very like he's trying his best to be very precise about how he's parking it because he doesn't want to damage this nice car, and like he keeps backing in and going back forth and backing in and going back forth. But there's a nice touch of like he runs over one of his kids' stuffed toys.
And that doesn't matter to him.
No, yeah, that's the thing. Is like his success and his happiness, in his mind, overtakes the happiness of his children.
Or anyone else thereof in his family.
Whereas his wife, as we saw with her wrecking that car like 2 times while parking it or driving it through, she just wants to get the car moving. She just wants it in the garage. She doesn't care how it gets there. And then we get the end of the movie where she gets a smaller car that fits in the garage, like it makes sense how it fits in the garage, you know? Like, it's not like, oh, I bought a nice car because it's a nice car, so I'm going to park it in the garage, and it has to go in the garage, even though I know it won't fit as well. No, she just got a car that'll fit well in the garage, you know?
Right. And there's a lot of... And, I mean, that was the nice thing. Every little bit, even the parts that seemed to drag on in this movie...
Yeah.
Had the payoff, and I feel like it was done a lot better. I mean, I know something that we love Stephen King, and we've always said our little criticisms, which is like reading a Stephen King novel is exhausting.
He goes into excruciating, like, you want to picture a world. He practically paints right in front of you.
Exactly. It's like trying to watch a movie but not having that movie just be visual, so it drives you nuts.
Have you read his new book yet?
No, I have not.
It's about a hitman. My brother owns it. He says it's great.
I'll have to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's reading a Stephen King novel is a lot of work, but you get the visual in there. I liked how things had a giant payoff.
Right, me too.
When it came down to this kind of, came down to this kind of shots and stuff like that, instead of just having it there with the possibility of it being a payoff.
But yeah, and like all the symbolisms and the little details, like nothing feels like it was done without any thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was done with some sort of meaning.
Exactly. Like,
even if it was hidden.
Like they go, like in early on in the movie, the two maids, Cleo and the other live-in maid, they go to the movies with their dates. And they ask, like, do you want a bite to eat? And they're like, no, we're not really that hungry. And then, as they're leaving, Cleo's date, like, goes back and, like, takes a drink of her soda and then catches up with them. Which I feel like was kind of suggestive of that, like, he wants things, but he doesn't want to ask for it. You know, he just kind of takes what he wants, you know?
Yeah.
Or he doesn't want to make you think he needs anything from you.
Which
he has like an insecurity about that kind of thing.
Which is the biggest manipulator that people get sucked into very easily.
Exactly. Exactly. And I will give him credit. He knows what to say to someone to make them fall in love with him. He's good with his words. I will give him that much.
But it's just a matter of like, eventually you gotta figure out something else, or better yet, just be a better person. But
exactly. Like, because after they have sweet love. They make sweet love. He does his whole, martial arts routine nude. To which I was like, oh, I didn't know I'd be seeing a penis in this film.
An uncircumcised penis.
Yeah, all natural. All natural. To which some people, like, they pointed out scientific studies. They're like, are you mad that your parents had you circumcised when you were a baby? And I was like, no, why would I be? Well, if it has the other bit, it has more nerves on it, so it's more sensitive. And I was like... yeah. It's also a lot harder to clean, but whatever.
I mean, I love how people always ask that, and it's like, why don't you ask somebody else? Or why don't you just appreciate the penis you have?
Exactly. Well, and it's like, I I don't want to get too stuck on this penis conversation, but it is something that bothers me. Because it's like, it would feel better, right? And it's like, it doesn't feel horrible now. I don't have sex. I haven't had sex yet. But, like, other things, they don't feel horrible. You know what I mean? And it's not like I can go back in time and tell my dad, don't cut the end off. I'm curious. You know what I mean?
If we all could. If we all could, I think people would make some other different choices.
It's easier to get an infection if it's all there.
Yeah, which is... I applaud that this movie...
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, we are talking about a movie, right.
I applaud that this movie has given full frontal nudity of a male, because it's something that...
And there's no nudity of a woman in this movie at all.
Yeah, which I like, because there's the barrier of always having to have a nude female, because males become very skittish whenever they see a penis. Yeah. Like, there's people I know, and they freak out about it.
If I get a boner from it, will it make me gay?
Well, there are people just like, why there has to be a dick in this movie? And I'm like, why do you need boobs?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you need to see a woman's nipples all the time? It's a movie.
Yeah.
You don't need to see anybody naked.
No.
But
it's for a story.
If you have a penis, gentlemen, what's wrong with seeing another one? Because it doesn't make you gay.
Yeah.
It's a penis, and I hate to tell you, but if you really think that seeing a penis on a TV makes you gay,
you're not as secure.
I'm afraid that anything you do in the male culture would then therefore make you very gay.
Yeah. Usually the guys who are more cautious about doing things because they think it might be gay are more questioning their sexuality than any other guy in the room.
That's what I say a lot. That's why I'm just like, just let stuff be. It doesn't affect you in any way, and I think it's much better that they did have the nudity in there, because it also shows a bigger part of Hollywood.
Yeah, well, and like I wouldn't categorize this movie as Hollywood, because...
No, it's independent.
It's international.
Well, international, too. Isn't it independent, though? Because it was funded by Netflix. Didn't they have a smaller budget for this one, too?
Yeah, but I wouldn't call it... I don't like how the term Hollywood is used for any movie that's made, you know what I mean? Because Hollywood is a specifically American location. And yeah, it's very synonymous with all films, but it's like... I imagine dealing with creating a movie in Mexico is a lot different of a process than dealing with making a movie here. You know what I mean?
Probably a lot cheaper, honestly.
Yeah. No, you want to make a cheap movie and not have to waste a lot of time before you can start shooting. Make a movie in Turkey. If you don't know, Turkish cinema doesn't have any copyright laws. So the same movie will come out 10 times a year with different actors and a slightly different script. So, like... Here's how I'll put it. Imagine in 2008, we got Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, right? Then imagine a month later, Tom Cruise's Iron Man came out. And then imagine a month after that, Jon Favreau's Iron Man came out with Jon Favreau playing Iron Man. Do you see?
It's basically the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's just with different actors. Which makes me think it's just like, it's the country for multiverse movies. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because can you imagine those conversations if we didn't have copyright laws? I liked this cast for the Avengers better. No, I liked the Simon Pegg one. Like, what?
That would be a world that I wouldn't want to discuss movies ever in.
No, because you'd be talking about the same thing. Like, and you'd get chastised for picking one that was less popular than the other versions that had. You know what I mean?
Right.
It would just get very old hat and, excuse me for using fancy terms, it would just seem very pastiche at a point. Like, it wouldn't seem like a thing. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just kind of thinking a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. Is that what you call it when you text? You're thinking? Calling him out on a radio show.
You said, how many awards did you say this won, too? Because I don't think we mentioned
3 Academy Awards, but that wasn't all the awards it won. It got nominated for a lot more than 3 Academy Awards, I'll tell you that, though.
Alright, let's see. I don't know if these are all...
I mentioned all the Academy Awards before we got into the nitty and the gritty.
Well, I'm also looking at the awards, but I don't know if each and every one of these are for winning or if they actually are just nominations.
One says awards and the other says nominations. Awards is what it was.
Oh, so the awards are official what they got.
Yep. Below it says nominations, and those are all the things it was nominated for, not necessarily won.
Jeez, well, got a shit ton from different people.
It's because it's a good movie. I can't argue the idea that it's a good movie if it won that many awards. You know what I mean?
There's got to be at least 25 to 30 awards here.
Yeah, it's a lot of statues. Yeah, it's good for them. Good for that cast and good for that director. And they earned it, man. Because doing a black and white movie now, it's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, the art style of the colors of just being just basic was a very nice touch that, opposed from the subtitles, I don't know, it was different because you're also seeing a movie that's not fleshed with the filter of being being typically when you have like an old black and white film like what Robert Eggers did, but he used an actual camera, so it was a 16:4 ratio format. Whenever you see something like that or like a older like found footage video or something like that, they always seem to put it in a 4:16 ratio and put a filter over it to make it look older.
Right. Or like how Drew Goddard made Bad Times at the El Royale with actual like film and not digital.
Yeah. And it looks sharp. I like when they actually go for stuff, but I like that this was filmed in a way that it was still pure HD and just they took the color out of it.
Yeah.
And it was really nice because it was, and I think that also made it a bit more cozy.
Right. And
it almost made it more smooth for your eyes because you're not trying to scan. Because immediately when you look at, with how much stuff is in here, it probably would have been a very colorful movie with how much they had on their sets.
Oh, yeah.
Because I swear this had probably more in its environment for things and shots than most movies.
Mm-hmm.
So, I kind of liked how like everything kind of smoothly ran and looked as, the camera was, turning or something like that around a corner. Some of their zoom-ins too were kind of interesting. It was just interesting. So where did we leave off? We left off with
we've kind of been just general discussing this one.
Yeah. I mean, it is a big movie to kind of beat on.
It's 2 hours 17. It's not a short film by any means.
No, there is a lot that happens. Yeah. One of them being that I like the sense of community in this too.
Mm-hmm. Sense of family, really.
Yeah. Because I forgot what they were at when the forest was lit on fire.
Oh yeah, they were at I think it's like a sister's house or something like that.
And they
were like, yeah, because their aunt, no, it's their uncle's house, because their aunt, they talk about how like, oh, our cousins speak English and they're not even gringos, and they're like, but no, our aunt is. So the uncle married an American woman, and she lives in Mexico. The weirdest part for me was the fact that they had the kids' rooms and they were taking the suitcases there, and there's just all the taxidermy dog heads from all the dogs that have lived in that house over the years. And I'm just like, why? Like, I get it. Shoot a deer, put its head with antlers on the wall to prove that you conquered a beast, or, stuff a bear and put it in the corner because you killed something mighty. I get it. Whatever. But your dogs? What the heck kind of tradition is that?
Or at the very least, taxidermy the entire dog.
Well, and it's like it covers the whole wall. Like, it's just dog heads everywhere with dates of when they were born and when they were dead and what their name was. And I'm like, I would just cry the whole time looking at that wall.
I feel like
all those good boys and girls.
They probably don't. Their dogs probably don't like that environment.
Probably not. No, that
like,
dog that went in that room looked worried.
You can't tell me that the dogs didn't sense like, excuse me?
Yeah, is this what's going to happen to us? Were they actually dead, or did you just have more wall space?
Right.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of dogs in this movie, I've noticed.
Oh, yes, the doggo is one of the man's best friends.
Mm-hmm. Where are the cats? Why are there no cats? Because they're dicks?
I don't know. But that is funny. I did not see a cat in this film.
Yeah, now that you're thinking about it, you're like, geez, you're right. There are no cats in this
There is a lot of dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe there are cats, we just haven't noticed them for the abundance of dogs. And the interesting scene to me was when they were all, like, at that bank and they were hanging out and then they were just shooting, and we as the audience don't see what they're shooting at. We're assuming targets, but I like the idea that they were just shooting for the sake of shooting. Like, they were just shooting guns, because sure, you know.
I mean, there's something to say that's relaxing about shooting, and, I mean, if you have open land like that, why not?
I've never done it. I've never handled a gun in my life.
It's fun. I mean, if you're safe with it, it's kind of like archery.
Sure.
It's a craft. It's something that can be relaxing. I mean, I do love, too, that every environment they made, like, that was in a very open place.
Right.
You felt like you were there.
Mm-hmm. Like, especially during the forest fire scene.
Yeah, like, they covered every angle and shot in, like, a shot.
Yeah.
So it was nice. You get, like, all angles. So you'd sit there and you'd be like, okay, that's actually pretty neat. I get to see from there. And then it'd, like, you know, turn another way and you'd be like, oh, gee. I could see from there. I think, did they use a fisheye lens for one of the shots that are in the forest, or did they just kind of...
It seemed like they did, honestly. I don't know. It's not the, like I love seeing shots like this, but I think the most amazing shot was for a movie we haven't seen yet, where, like, I told you about it and you added it to your list, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's all, like, it's 5 20-minute single takes that they did to make this movie. And I think it might also be black and white, I'm not sure. I don't think it is, but, my favorite is one of the beginning scenes because this guy is on the phone with someone, and then he's on the phone with someone, and then they used a periscope lens from a submarine and zoomed in across, like, he's calling someone standing on a hill, and then they zoom in across the way into the city, and then you see the other person pick up the phone from a window.
See, that's creative.
Right? How cool is that? Like, that's so amazing to me that film can do that. Like, you see the other person pick up the phone. Like, what the heck kind of shot is that? How do you pull that off? Like, it's amazing to me.
That seems like something fun. Did it win any awards? Do you know?
No, it was at Fantastic Fest, which I still have yet to go to, but I always look at the movies that get shown there. Like, Anomalisa is one that's weird that I want to show you sometime. It's puppets. It's a romance movie.
With puppets.
Yeah. And, like, there's a point in the romance movie, this might get a little crass for some people listening, where a guy pleases a woman using his facial section. And how they got the sound effect for it was they just had the guy open mouth chew a banana.
The stuff that they come up with though for Foley design is just,
it's pretty great. Like in the Won't You Be My Neighbor, the Mr. Rogers movie where Tom Hanks plays Mr. Rogers, like every scene where they travel from a city to another city is done in the style of Mr. Rogers. So when the main character's like, oh, I have to go on a plane and I have to fly to where the Mr. Rogers show is filmed, it shows him getting on a toy plane that, like, goes into the air via strings.
Huh.
Yeah. Like, because you watched Mr. Rogers when you were a kid.
No, I did not. I never
really?
had.
Wow, that's crazy. Because I remember my mom, He taught my mom how to tie her shoes back in the day. That's how much she remembers him. And then I watched him when I was a kid, and then he died. And it was weird because, like, it was someone who lived for so long that they were part of my mom's childhood and mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wonder what that would have been like to have it. No, the most I ever came to anybody close was Bill Nye the Science Guy.
He's alive.
Yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah.
But that's the closest I think I've ever came to having somebody I've grown up with.
Yeah, you didn't watch Sesame Street?
I did.
Okay.
But I kind of... That's faded from my mind. I remember the characters. I don't remember anybody specific on there other than Elmo and stuff.
Sure. I mean, I remember watching that. I watched a lot of Caillou when I was younger. When I was really younger. Like 16. No, I'm kidding. When I was a child, yeah. Clifford the Big Red Dog, of course.
Which I'm kind of surprised they didn't really show the kids watching any cartoons that I can remember.
What do you mean? Oh, in this movie.
Yeah.
They didn't show them watching any kid shows.
Yeah.
But they were playing with, like, little toy guns. And, like, you know, they were being active children.
Oh, I know. It's just... I just kind of found that funny because they're also technically wealthy kids. Their family's wealthy, so I just kind of found that interesting because, yeah, almost always with those types of time period movies, too, it seems like you always have a kid watching TV of sorts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, because that's something easy to connect to people. I don't think there is a human I know who doesn't watch TV.
I think that could be an American thing, too.
Yeah, probably.
Because you most commonly see it in American movies.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you saw it in Parasite, either.
People watching TV?
No, just the kids kind of having... You know, there's those insert shots of kids watching, like, a specific show that you can identify.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, like in the Kung Fu Kid, which is the Karate Kid 2010. I call it the Kung Fu Kid. That's what they practice.
He uses Kung Fu.
And Jaden Smith's Kung Fu Kid.
Yeah.
They have a shot where SpongeBob is being... it's dubbed in Chinese.
Yeah.
And you kind of have a shot or something like that. I mean, that was to represent change.
Yeah.
But there's always been kind of like a shot, you know, something different.
Exactly.
But at least from what I've seen. I almost want to say that this probably also was that good of a movie, too, because it's like a fictional biograph of life in Mexico in 1977, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it does deal a lot with 1970. Just 70.
Okay, I thought it said 77 in the description.
You might have seen 71, because that's where we are at the end of the story.
Okay.
And 1 does look a lot like a 7. At least in my head. But we deal with, like, the student riots that happened in Mexico in the time. And those turned very violent, very fast, unfortunately. A lot of people died in that.
Yeah, I like how nothing kind of never got held back with this movie.
No, of course you can't. You can't with a historical fiction.
I can imagine because how do you say the director's name?
Alfonso?
Alfonso, he did the cinematography for this movie as well.
He's a great cinematographer.
So, I can imagine that probably actually made it that much better because he probably knew so much easier if you can do it your own shots while knowing what shots you want to do.
Exactly.
So, I can't imagine that, you know, that isn't a large part of the reason it turned out too. But yeah, having a time period drama piece is very popular, and it gives you a interesting way of storytelling while describing a history. Now, like I said, that could be just for most Americans, although I'm sure other countries probably look at some of ours too. I mean, that's always been some of the fascinating things to me. Like, I have a movie that I want to watch called Mid-90s, which was a Jonah Hill film that I believe was released by A24.
I think so.
And that got pretty good ratings, and that follows two brothers
And one of them, he's best friends with a group of skaters.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
It's just kind of like a coming-of-age film. And then there was another one that I recently got. I found it at a dollar store, and it was from Ireland. And it's about these three brothers that venture out to raise money for their father, who I believe is dying of cancer.
Okay.
That was something I was going to watch because that looked pretty interesting. I don't know if that would interest you guys at all, but it's just always been kind of interesting to see those time pieces and how they can display so much and show so much. And I like the fact that it feels much older when you're watching Roma throughout each and every environment. It feels older than 1970s.
It does. It does. But maybe that's because we associate black and white with an older period than 1970s.
I wouldn't even say I don't think it was that. I think it was just looking at some of the buildings there.
Alright.
Because not everything is built the same way as America. So that was kind of another thing, too. And I wasn't associating it necessarily with wealth as much as I was associating it with the agriculture of the buildings.
Yeah.
And places that they shot.
Because, like, if you look at where the, and when they are celebrating Christmas, if you look, the rich people, they're at a big, nice log cabin-style mansion, and it's really nice. And then Cleo, the maid, she gets snuck away by another maid to this, like, hole-in-the-wall, literally, where these people are dancing and celebrating, and she goes down this, like, 24-step, at least, long staircase that not only does it not have any kind of railing, it looks like it's going to fall over at any second. Like, it's leaning so hard that it looks like it's just going to collapse.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect, like, symbolism of, like, you know, how the other side lives.
Yeah, and also just kind of what her life is in the balance, I think.
Yeah. And her, because she gets pregnant pretty early on in the movie.
Yeah, which becomes her
whole arc, essentially.
Yeah, well, it's kind of what kickstarts her whole panic.
Yeah, I mean, because her boyfriend leaves after he told her basically that he loved her. He didn't say it, but he said anytime he looks at her, he feels calm. And I feel like that's a code for love, you know what I mean?
Yeah, still that masculinity of, I can't really speak my feelings, but here's how my feelings are presented in a way that you can understand.
Exactly, and that whole, like, he leaves, and she's pregnant with his child, and she's just kind of left there like, what do I do? Who do I go to? How do I get help? And, you know. And then she gets so stressed out because she's getting a gun pointed at her that her water breaks. She goes into labor due to stress. Which is insane.
Which I believe is pretty dangerous to have stress-induced labor.
Because the baby's not prepared. And neither are you.
So
it is interesting. Well, and we find out that that's something that was an issue because the baby was stillborn.
Yeah.
Which is a difficult thing. I won't name any names on here because it's not my business to share. But I know some people who have had stillborn children, and it's a thing of, like, how it was described to me by someone very close in my life who experienced it was someone. She said that someone told her that it was okay that it happened because it happened to them and they turned out okay, so they're going to turn out okay. But she said that didn't help because, you know, the love I had for my child was different than the love you had for your child because we are different people. You know what I mean? So, like, it doesn't matter how good you say you are now or how the situation is going to get better because my life is not your life and I'm handling it in a different way than you are 9 times out of 10.
Well, and you never want to say that to anybody because it's not...
You need to let people cope. No matter how long it takes them, they need to process that situation. Because think about it, like, that's something I don't think I could ever handle, honestly. Like, you're telling me you carried this thing for 9 months and then it's born and it's just dead? Like, it doesn't even get a chance to live its life. That is the most unfair shit I've ever heard of in my life. And that's why when she's holding her dead baby, I frickin' cried. I bawled my eyes out. And now I am crying.
That's a very... And that's something that I think makes this movie better, too. It's just... Everything that could go wrong...
Kind of does.
Pretty much just
like,
goes wrong.
What are the odds of them going to shop for furniture in the area that gets a riot that happens and someone, like, rushes into the building and shoots someone? Like, what are the odds of that happening? To them, of all people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, how can it get any worse? And I like that they put that in there, because there's those people that their ceiling is so far above anyone else's floor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's their basic, stupid, unburdened problems that they, that they just kind of, it couldn't get any worse. And it's like, you realize you're above ground, like you're still like on a pillar that's 10 feet above water.
Exactly.
You're not doing that bad.
Yeah, when it's like, that's the cliche truth about it. Like, no matter how bad your life is, it could be worse. It could always be worse.
I think people, they really kind of ignore that fact.
Yeah. Just be grateful with what you have, I say.
But I have to say, too, I think part of the other reason that this movie did so well, especially in America, is because there's always that example of people saying other countries have it worse.
Right. That cliche.
And I think this kind of proved... Look at everything that they're doing and that's happening. It still happens. It's not just an American thing.
Yeah, it happens everywhere.
This happens everywhere. It's life.
It happens worse most places, too.
Yeah, but it happened much worse here because of so-and-so. So before you try to compare, just remember that you're comparing this to that.
Yeah, exactly. No two experiences are the same or, Exactly, yeah. And it is interesting because this movie is very much a think piece about, like, just classism and, just, it's about strong women at its core, which, some movies have tried to make movies about strong women and just don't write it correctly. A few come to mind, but I won't say any because I'm afraid I'll get sued.
We won't say any, but I think some of you should know.
You know what we're talking about. And I just, I didn't feel... Like, even though the two main male characters in this movie were assholes, I never felt like I was being called an asshole because I was a guy. You know what I mean?
It's the person that they chose to be that defined what made them an asshole.
Exactly.
And I like that coming from a male director as well.
Exactly.
And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, what if a female director... I don't think that really matters.
Because we're all humans,
Because there are people who realize...
I don't have to be a woman to understand that women have it difficult.
Exactly.
I don't. And I also don't have to be a woman to understand that women are badasses and you're all awesome. You know what I mean? Like...
It is one of those things that you really can't say that you won't understand... physically or mentally, but you will understand. You will understand as a human being. It's kind of like, and I hate when people kind of comparatively try to pull that for some things, because it's like I get it, and I try not to be too political about it, but it is one of those things also where I'm like, okay, well, I'm black and I'm more prone to get shot.
Exactly.
I won't get taken advantage of. I just might be shot if I get pulled over because I'm black.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason.
And I'm white, and, if I drive, there's a very less likelihood of that happening. There's a possibility of it happening, but that's only because there's a possibility of anything happening anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's the possibility of a leprechaun walking through that door. It didn't happen, but there's the possibility of it, however small. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I've always kind of thought that, and I like the fact that, I feel like, Parasite took on
classism.
the classism in a different way. And I think I would say that maybe these are two good movies to watch back to each other.
I would agree with that. That's
one is kind of, it is narratively driven by classism, but one is driven specifically and narratively by classism, while the other one is driven by classism and takes it a step further with Roma, is what I'm specifically referring to.
Right.
With being a female in those times. And
in
also
the 70s of all times, too.
Yeah, and being rich. Because, I mean, no offense to Mrs. Park, but they kind of made her an airhead for that movie.
What movie?
Parasite.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
stereotypical airhead, but, like, yeah, not always the case. Like, the rich mom in here, she, like, the end of the movie, she, like, you know, comes up with her own business and something she wants to do that she loves and has a passion for, and she thought of it, you know?
And I think that makes it that much more impactful because that, you know, it's not just handed to you. And I feel like that was also part of her journey. I feel like she kind of felt trapped too, not with her kids, but by the fact of everything that she had was just kind of there.
Right.
Because she was married to somebody who was wealthy. And it was kind of like, well, you know, that was kind of an arc that they dealt with on George Lopez that I liked.
Okay. Any chance he gets to mention George Lopez, guys?
It is a great show that should not have been canceled for... I forget what it was. It was bad, but...
Yeah, probably horrible. Anyway, continue.
I'm trying to think of it. There was a breadwinner arc. In which George is temporarily out of work and Angie basically starts working more and becomes the breadwinner. Well, she starts making all the financial decisions without consulting George.
Right. And I don't think that's fair to either party in any of the circumstances. Like, you know, you're married.
You're a team.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
even...
You're married, and, you know, the money you make it's both of yours. So, like, I don't think either of you should get any... You should both have equal say in whatever happens with all of your money, you know, like...
Man, I would say we're... Just any relationship when you have with anybody, it's kind of figuring that out.
Yeah, I think that's why it's, like... It's difficult for a lot of people to get in a relationship because, you know, you've been yourself and independent more than in a relationship. You know, you've made decisions without consulting anyone, and there's a certain freedom to that can be intoxicating. And that's why a lot of people don't like the idea of relationships, because you have to check in for a lot of the things you do, and they find that to be a drag. I don't consider that to be a drag, personally, because, you know, I don't do much, but
it is one of those things that you kind of just have to. And I mean, it also, I think, depends on the situation at hand, because people address certain things in certain ways.
Right, and people deal with certain things in different ways as well. Like, I won't say the movie, but we're going to review a movie pretty soon here, and it involves a subject matter that you didn't inform me of because you didn't think about it, and that's just how your brain works. Like, all you know is like, oh, I saw this movie once, you know, I don't remember much details about it other than it being good. But it had a scene in the movie where a dude shoots himself, and due to my circumstances in life, I like to be informed of such things so I can be prepared. So it was a miscommunication between us that we now, you know, have hopefully put that into our lexicon to remember for next time.
Yeah, which, you know, everything revolves some sort of communication and compromise.
Oh yeah, everything's about communication. Everything. Relationships,
and,
you know, international relations. It's all about talking. That's all it is.
And yeah,
Blue versus red, like everything.
I think this also touched up on the subject too of just being one of those films that shows the most important thing is that communication, not just through men and women, but through anybody, communication is the key to everything, and you can't just abandon ship when things get too tough.
Exactly. Well, and communication is, like, it's difficult as well.
It is one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do. I wouldn't even sugarcoat it.
No.
It's one of the hardest things that people ever have to do for themselves and with someone else.
Because it's so much easier to just be like, it's so much easier to, instead of checking in with someone, hey, instead of saying to someone, hey, I want pizza for dinner, do you want to order it or do you want something else? It's so much easier to just think in your brain, I want pizza, and then use your phone to order pizza. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's such a instinct that everybody has because it's just simple and
exactly.
you have your desire and typically you're just not necessarily in a selfish way, but kind of looking at your interests like I'm human, I'm hungry, or I want this. I've worked hard for it.
Yeah. Like, you know, money can define the status of a relationship, you know, like, you know, if you both work, but the, you know, guy in this instance makes more money an hour than the woman, should he decide how budget is spent? Should he have more of a say? And should he, like, if he wants to splooge on something and get, like, a video game or, I don't know, something, should he be able to do that solely because he makes more money even though you share the same money? You know what I mean? Like, it's an interesting thing.
It's a very complicated and also very simple.
That's why I don't like the term, like, we have a complicated relationship. Like, everyone does, you know, to some... We have a complicated relationship. You know what I mean? To some degree.
And I think that's just every human, though.
Yeah, that's just relationships are complicated, you know? It's not, like, a unique thing to you. Like, never feel bad for having issues with, you know, anyone you love in your life, because everyone has issues with everyone that they love. I don't care who you are. And if you don't have issues, it's because you haven't said them all out loud yet. Trust me.
Right. So, and, you know, I mean, that's why you have to declare the air. I think that's just kind of everything. You have to vocalize certain things, otherwise nothing gets done.
Mm-hmm. You should never do what Cleo's, the guy who got her pregnant in this movie does, where, like, you just do martial arts in front of her face and never say that that's my kid again, because if you do, I will hurt you. You should never do that to any human. You know what I mean? Like,
no. Especially because it's your fault.
Exactly. Sorry, guy. You splooged into a vagoo and made a chitlin. You have a responsibility now. Like...
And, I mean, if you're that upset about it, you probably should have used a protection plan.
Or just not had sex.
Which is what's
the greatest protection ever? Not doing it.
Now, that may be disappointing to some of you, but a lot of you that do complain about children and aftermaths, just don't do it.
You know the guarantee you will get, guys, if you don't have sex with your girlfriend, that you won't get pregnant? 100%, actually. That's how the statistics work.
You won't have a kid, that's for sure.
Exactly.
At least you won't. And hopefully it stays that way.
Unless you have, you know, a creepy girlfriend like the nurse in frickin' High Life, where she just takes it from you against your will. In which case, don't date that woman. Probably not, right? Back me up here, Noah? Yeah.
Yeah, no, High Life was the perfect example of that. I actually like, too, that this movie did not have to take any cheap shots of doing a rape scene or anything like that. I like that they've specifically stayed away from all of that. That's not a movie. That's not a pivotal
scene. We never saw, we saw the husband with a girl for a second, but we never saw him with a girl. Like, we never visibly saw him having an affair.
Yeah. And I think that's what also worked in this movie's favor. Not everything needs to be some hardcore sex scene. Not everything needs to be a graphic rape scene. It doesn't make a great movie, people. There does not need to be shown a rape scene. It does nothing but be disgusting. Exactly. And if you feel like that's a form of art, you are a fucked up piece of shit.
Yeah. And that's
I have no problem saying that.
That's not an objective opinion. I think that should be everyone's opinion.
No, that is a fact. And if you don't like it, that sucks.
Yeah.
But
in any case, we've been running a little long here, haven't we?
Yeah, sorry we didn't do this beat for beat, guys. It is one of those
Well,
movies you have to say for yourself.
it's one of those movies I prefer to experience, because it's like, you know, what am I going to say to sum up this movie? She walks around for 5 minutes, you know, and then goes to a mall shop.
Describing this movie is very hard because it really is empty if you're not watching it.
Yeah, you put yourself into the movie. Like, if I tried to describe this character piece, it would make you not want to watch it.
You're a watcher.
Yeah.
You're basically what the Watcher is in Marvel. You're a spectator.
Uatu the Watcher, yeah. Exactly.
And I kind of...
What if?
I really do like that the movie did style it that way. That, in a sense, while you really couldn't identify with anybody necessarily as a male, or maybe for some people in their cases as females, you could spectate. So it was almost like...
It was like you were watching a year of someone else's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's interesting to me. Just a stranger, you know, because they all felt like real people. And they felt like they had real experiences.
Yeah, which is important. So good with their acting.
And it's incredibly important from a writing standpoint. You can't have someone say something that no human would ever say in a normal interaction.
No, and that's something that this movie also did well. The dialogue was not cheesy. It wasn't something random. It was very well written and stern and stayed true to whatever the characters were saying for certain situations instead of, you know, just kind of selling out in some areas.
Exactly.
And just saying, it could be tense. I'm going to make it more tense by adding something that you'd find in an action movie.
Exactly.
Or your typical not sitcom, typical
comedy.
You know, well,
rom-com.
I would say your typical TV show, just average series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. God, we got deep on this episode.
Yeah, it's a deep movie though, so it is a very deep subject.
It invokes a lot. Like I imagine this will be when at some point I'm sure we talk about the movie Marriage Story. I imagine it'll follow a similar format of us getting deep into conversation just about life in general.
Yeah, or if we do Minari, because I've heard that one's kind of... Minari, yeah, that's going to be something that I believe is also kind of a deep but more lighthearted film.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's about the American dream. You know, they come from Vietnam, they start a farm, and they're able to live their lives.
Which is the funny thing that everybody who comes from a different country got the American dream except for the Americans.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And that ironic.
Well, wait, what's that great line from the Watchmen comic, and it's in the movie? It's like they're having that riot, and then the comedian just starts shooting people, and Owlman asks, "What happened to us? What happened to the American dream?" And he looks at him. "What happened to the American dream came true, and you're looking at it."
Yeah, chaos.
Exactly. Like, that's why the comedian is one of my favorite characters in all of comic books, because he's such a deep character.
He's despicable and disturbed given his circumstances.
And it's fascinating because that whole comic, the beginning of it, is the comedian's death. So every instance you have interacting with that character is a flashback. And it's like, God, that character was deep when he was alive, you know?
Which, we may eventually kind of do some of those superhero-esque movies, because I think eventually...
Yeah. I mean, those people are in costumes. I would not call Watchmen a superhero movie. It is way too bleak to be a superhero movie.
But it is in that superhero type genre. Like
you know, costume vigilante type situation. Yeah.
It's very dark, but I feel like, again, people give way too much rap on superhero movies. Because or anybody that has kind of like that power vigilantism. Because you can go pretty deep like a story like this, and I think Watchmen did that pretty well.
Exactly.
But, without further ado, check that out, guys. It's on Netflix. It is a good watch. You might have to watch it. Like, I know eventually I'll watch it again, because it is one of those movies that for some of you might not be able. And be mindful that I don't want it to hinder anybody, but I don't want it to turn you off. I want to give a forewarning that there are no other languages available. So if you, like I said, if you have to rewind a couple of scenes to try and read some of the subtitles.
Yeah, there are other languages available for subtitles,
just not any dubs.
Audio. Yeah.
For audio. So just be mindful of that going in so you're not too surprised and not taken aback, like, you know. Because that was some of the things where I was like, I kind of want to hear English audio for some of this.
Mm-hmm.
Just so I can experience the scene as well.
Sure. You'll just, yeah. And then, you know, if it interests you, like it's going to interest me and I'm going to watch soon, watch the Making of documentary that's also on Netflix.
Yeah,
Road to Roma, which is an hour and a half long.
It's always a great experience to be watching some of those behind the scenes because there's so much ideas, love, inspiration, and other stuff that you can get from those. So
exactly.
But without further ado, guys, check it out on Netflix if you want to see it.
We'll be back soon because we're doing a massive drop of movies. Do you want to tell them the theme of the movies that are coming up, or are we saving it for a secret?
Since you guys will probably be hearing these during the month of August, and since we'll be releasing probably the slate of the month, for the most part, next week anyway, it's kind of going to be a more serious, I don't know exactly what we have for the name of it, but it'll be more of a thriller, more realism type month. So we got a couple of different movies that focus heavily on realism, PTSD, and mental health. And just kind of inner demons. So yeah. It's a very realism type month.
It'll be a lot of fun.
I think it'll be a very interesting dive, and it'll make for some good deep film.
It was a dive, all right. I'll tell you that.
I think for some of them, it makes for some deep conversation, but that's always good with some of these movies.
But you know, as always, this has been Film Nerds Hour. He's been Noah Sweeto,
and he's been Nathaniel Shoemaker.
We'll see you next time.
So long, everyone.
Goodbye.